Kayla Harrison's story doesn't begin in the cage under bright lights or in front of roaring crowds. It begins long before that, in the quiet places where champions are forged, in the heat of a judo dojo where repetition becomes ritual and discipline becomes instinct. Before the world ever saw her slam another fighter through canvas, before she ever put fear in the eyes of professionals who had spent years mastering their craft, Kayla Harrison learned what it meant to endure, and that endurance, that sharpened steel forge through countless hours on a mat, is what transformed her from a young judoka desperate to climb out her own obstacles into a two-time Olympic gold medalist and a force that mixed martial arts simply couldn't contain. When she eventually crossed into the cage, she didn't tiptoe in. She stormed it. She brought a lifetime of combat instincts, honed by years of international competition. And she brought a presence that even seasoned fighters couldn't ignore. There's a particular kind of silence that enters a room when an apex predator walks in. Kayla carried that silence with her long before her PFL debut, long before her highlight reel takedowns became viral moments. Her reputation followed her, and her opponents felt it before her first punch ever landed. And yet, nothing quite prepares you for the violence and precision she would unleash the moment that cage door closed. Her rise in mixed martial arts is often summarized in quick lines: undefeated moments, dominant grappling, another finish added to her record. But that doesn't tell the real story, because Kayla wasn't simply winning. She was imposing something far more profound, a pressure so suffocating, so relentless, that fighters who had never been physically overwhelmed in their careers suddenly looked helpless beneath her. Her debut wasn't just impressive, it was a message. And from that moment on, every opponent she faced felt the weight of an Olympic champion who had discovered an entirely new arena to conquer. The energy surrounding her early fights felt like a storm creeping toward landfall. Everyone could see it building, and no one could stop it. That energy reached a new peak when she stepped into the cage against Joseette Cotton at PFL 6 in August 2018. Fans remember that night not because it lasted long or because it was competitive. It wasn't, but because it was one of the clearest demonstrations of what happens when someone with world-class grappling decides to dismantle another human being piece by piece. From the opening bell, Harrison marched forward, uncorking crisp strikes that forced Cotton backward before dropping levels and exploding through her hips. In an instant, Cotton was no longer fighting upright. She was airborne, and when she came down hard. It was a kind of slam that doesn't leave room for doubt. Harrison immediately secured side control, her shoulder pressing Cotton into the canvas with a weight that looked unbearable. The crowd reacted not with the surprise that comes from a lucky shot, but with a recognition that they had just witnessed a fighter entering her prime with no signs of hesitation. Knees crashed into Cotton's ribs. Her arms were pried apart. Every attempt to escape was smothered. Kayla didn't just dominate. She dismantled Cotton's ability to breathe, to think, to mount any meaningful offense at all. Round after round, the punishment increased. Harrison moved from one position to the next like she was gliding, transitioning with a fluidity that comes only from decades of elite grappling. By the third round, Cotton's resistance had become desperation. Harrison mounted her, rained down strikes, and forced the referee to intervene at 124. Another finish, another exclamation point, another step toward the path that seemed inevitable. That December, Kayla closed out 2018 with another display of pure suffocation, this time against Muriel Charnesky. The world was beginning to understand that Harrison wasn't simply a judo player converting to MMA. She was something far more dangerous, an athlete with Olympic-caliber instincts paired with newfound taste for controlled destruction. Charnesky never stood a chance as Kayla dragged her to ground, passed guard with ease, and ended the fight before the crowd had even settled into their seats. It wasn't just a win, it was a declaration. And 2019 only amplified the legend. Her July fight against Morgan Fryer was more of the same, complete dominance. And then came her showdown with Bobby Joe Dalziel at PFL 7. The moment the cage door locked, Harrison walked forward like someone who had already visualized the sequence 100 times. Dalziel tried to keep distance, tried to use the cage to reset, but Kayla's pressure is the kind you can't reset from. She closed the gap in an instant, scooped Dalziel off her feet, and planted her on the canvas as if gravity itself belonged to her. The fight unfolded exactly as expected. One-sided, methodical, suffocating. By then, the sport was running out of ways to describe her. Analysts use words like unstoppable. Fighters use words like terrifying. And fans, even those who had never watched judo in their lives, could feel the inevitability whenever she fought. Kayla Harrison was no longer just an Olympian. She was becoming a phenomenon. In November 2020, she moved to featherweight for her Invicta FC debut against Courtney King, a moment many believed would finally challenge her. King was tough. King was seasoned. King was ready to test a new version of Harrison. But Kayla didn't just win. She delivered what became one of the most brutal displays of dominance in her career. Early in the fight, she landed a clean left hand that disrupted King's stance before dragging her to the ground with frightening ease. Once she secured mount, the real damage began. Elbows sliced through King's defenses, carving a deep, ugly cut across her forehead that immediately turned the cage into something resembling a battlefield. Kayla didn't pause. She didn't flinch. She kept hammering away. Round 2 was even worse. Harrison locked King into a crucifix, trapping both arms and leaving her exposed. And then the barrage began. Strike after strike after strike, until the referee had no choice but to stop the fight at 4:48. It was a gruesome reminder that Kayla Harrison at featherweight was just as unstoppable as she had been at lightweight. The division had been warned. Her 2021 run only added more fuel to her legend. She crushed Marina Mokhnatkina. She destroyed Cindy Dandois. And when she met Gina Fabian in the playoffs, Fabian attempted the same strategy fighters before her had attempted. Keep the distance, use length, avoid the clinch. But keeping distance against Harrison is like trying to outrun a tide. Eventually, it swallows you. Kayla closed the cage, tied Fabian up, tripped to the canvas, and the fight spiraled into the usual rhythm. Pressure, dominance, submission to the inevitable. That victory sent her to the PFL finals where she met Taylor Guardado. Guardado was tough, gritty, and motivated by the chance to take down the unstoppable force. But that night unfolded like so many before it. Harrison secured a takedown with little resistance, applied pressure like a vice, and forced Guardado into positions where survival was the only goal left. The finish came as expected. Harrison walked away with another championship and another year of absolute dominance. By 2022, opponents weren't just preparing for Kayla Harrison. They were bracing for her. That was certainly the case for Marina Mokhnatkina, a Sambo specialist with legitimate grappling credentials who many believe might finally test Harrison's ground game. Instead, the fight became another masterclass in suffocating control. Marina tried to counter Kayla's pressure, tried to initiate scrambles, tried to create separation. None of it worked. Harrison dragged her down, advanced position by position, and chipped away with controlled strikes. Even when Marina survived, she survived while drowning. Kayla earned a unanimous decision victory, not by outmuscling an inexperienced opponent, but by beating a decorated grappler at her own game. She didn't just dominate mixed martial artists, she dominated specialists. And that's the mark of a generational athlete. Her later clashes, including the highly anticipated showdown with Aspen Ladd, followed a similar pattern. Analysts debated whether Ladd's power and experience would finally create the kind of war fans had been waiting for. But once again, Harrison reminded the world that she doesn't fight wars. She ends them before they start. Her takedowns remain flawless. Her control remained suffocating. And her ground and pound remained something that no opponent had yet found a true answer for. There's a reason people speak about Kayla Harrison's grappling supremacy with reverence. It isn't just a technique. It's the inevitability. The moment she touches you, the fight changes. The moment she locks her hands, you're airborne. The moment your back touches a canvas, you are no longer fighting to win. You're fighting to survive. Her journey from the Olympic mats to the MMA cage is more than a transition from one sport to another. It's a transformation, an evolution. She didn't just switch careers. She reinvented what it means to be an elite grappler in mixed martial arts. When Kayla enters a cage, she brings an aura of absolute certainty, as if she already knows how the fight will end, and she's simply waiting for her opponent to accept it. What makes her rise even more compelling is the grit buried beneath the gold medals and highlight reel finishes. Kayla Harrison has fought battles far more painful and personal than anything that has ever happened in the cage. Her ability to rise, to fight, to dominate, those qualities weren't born out of medals or recognition. They were born out of adversity most people never knew she carried. That inner steel is what makes her relentless. It's what makes her fearless. It's what makes her one of the most imposing fighters of her generation. And when you look back at every slam, every crucifix finish, every ground and pound sequence that forced referees to step in before real damage could be done, you're not just watching an MMA fighter at work. You're watching the culmination of a lifetime spent mastering the art of control. Control over the body, control over the mind, and control over the chaos unfolding inside that cage. Kayla Harrison didn't just arrive in MMA. She conquered it piece by piece. Her opponents were never simply fighters. They became chapters in stories still being written. A story defined by dominance, precision, and almost mechanical ability to execute under pressure. And that story is far from over. Because every time Kayla Harrison steps into the cage, she carries with her the weight of an athlete who has already achieved everything most people can only dream of, and yet still fights with the hunger of someone who believes her true legacy is only beginning to emerge. Whether she is facing a rising contender, a seasoned veteran, or a specialist in another discipline, the outcome remains the same. Kayla imposes her will, forces her opponents into survival mode, and leaves the cage with another performance that raises the question of whether anyone in her division, or perhaps any division, truly has the tools to stop her. The unstoppable judo master turned MMA powerhouse has carved out a place in the sport that feels almost mythic. She doesn't just win. She redefines what dominance looks like. And as fans, commentators, and fighters continue to witness her rise, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Kayla Harrison isn't just part of women's MMA history. She is actively reshaping its future. And the question lingering over the entire sport now is simple, but seismic. Who can stop her? Let us know your predictions, theories, and dream matchups down in the comments. And if you want more deep dive documentaries on the most electrifying athletes in combat sports, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you never miss the next chapter in the stories that keep this sport alive.